My name is Claire Dawson. I'm 29 years old, and until last fall, I thought I had finally built the kind of safe, steady life I'd always dreamed of. I had a modest home in a quiet neighborhood, a job at the local library that I loved, and a husband, Mark, who I believed was my anchor in the chaos of the world. We weren't rich, but we had enough. We laughed, we fought, we made plans. I thought that meant we were solid. That night began like any other. The air was crisp, autumn settling in with its sharp bite, and I was curled up on the couch with a blanket, scrolling through my phone. Mark had said he'd be working late again, something that had become more and more frequent lately, but I didn't question it. I'd gotten used to eating dinner alone, cleaning up alone, falling asleep with only the glow of the porch light to keep me company until he came home. Around 10:30 p.m., I heard the knock. 3 sharp raps against the front door that startled me so badly, I nearly spilled my tea. I wasn't expecting anyone, and at that hour, every instinct in me tightened. I got up slowly, clutching the blanket around me, and peered through the peephole. It was my neighbor, David. He was in his 50s, a kind but quiet man who lived across the street. I opened the door just a crack. "Claire," he whispered, his voice low and urgent. "There's someone in your garage." For a moment, I just blinked at him. "What?" "I saw movement," he said quickly, glancing over his shoulder. "A figure slipped inside about 10 minutes ago." I thought maybe it was Mark, but then I realized I hadn't seen his car. My heart thudded painfully. "Are you sure?" "Positive." His eyes were sharp, sincere. "I thought I should warn you." I swallowed hard, nodding. "Thank you." I shut the door gently, my hands shaking.
The garage.
My garage. I stood frozen in the hallway, my mind racing. Should I call the police? Should I arm myself with something, anything, and check? The thought of someone crouched out there in the dark, just feet away from me, made my chest tighten. Then I remembered the cameras. Mark had installed security cameras months ago, linked to an app on our phones. He said it was for peace of mind, though he rarely looked at them himself. I grabbed my phone off the couch, opened the app, and tapped the feed for the garage. The screen flickered, grainy black and white. And then, my breath caught in my throat. There was someone there. A shadowed figure sat against the wall, knees drawn up, head bowed. At first, I thought it might be a stranger, some drifter who had broken in. But as the figure lifted their face toward the faint glow of the security light, my stomach lurched. It wasn't a stranger. It was someone I knew. Someone I never expected to see there. I staggered back, my phone slipping in my hand. My mind screamed a dozen questions, but no words formed. All I knew was that the ground beneath me had shifted, and I would never be able to go back to the life I thought I had. I closed the app, my heart hammering so loud I could hear it in my ears. Who do you call in that moment? The police? Your husband? Or do you stay silent, pretending you saw nothing at all? I didn't know what to do. But deep down, a part of me knew this wasn't just a break-in. This was something far worse. I sat there in the silence of my living room, clutching my phone like it was a lifeline, my chest rising and falling too quickly. Every logical thought told me to dial 911 immediately, but my hand wouldn't move. Because I knew that face. And the sickening familiarity made this situation more complicated than a simple break-in. It was my sister, Emily, 27, fiery, unpredictable, and the person I had cut off almost a year earlier after her life spun out of control. She'd burned bridges with nearly everyone in our family, drugs, lies, stealing money from my parents, showing up at my door begging for just one more chance that always ended with me crying and her disappearing. I had promised myself I wouldn't let her drag me down again. And now here she was, in my garage, like a ghost clawing her way back into my life. My whole body trembled. Why hadn't she just knocked? Why sneak in like that? And where was Mark? My husband usually locked up the garage before leaving. I opened the app again, zooming in on the grainy feed. Emily sat slumped against the wall, her face pale, eyes darting around like a cornered animal. She looked thinner than the last time I saw her, hair messy, clothes wrinkled. Something about her posture made me hesitate. She didn't look dangerous. She looked desperate. But desperation can be just as dangerous. I jumped when my phone buzzed in my hand. It was a text from Mark. Running late again. Don't wait up. Love you. I stared at the message, my thoughts spinning. Did he know she was here? Was this some kind of twisted arrangement? Or was Emily trespassing without him having a clue? David's warning echoed in my head. There's someone in your garage. I couldn't just sit there. Grabbing my house keys, I walked to the kitchen door that led into the garage. My hand hovered over the knob, my breath shallow. I pressed my ear to the door, silence, except for the faint creak of metal shifting as if she'd moved. Finally, I forced myself to speak. My voice shook. Emily. A sharp intake of breath came from the other side. Then a hoarse whisper. Claire, please. Don't call the cops. I squeezed my eyes shut. What are you doing here? I had nowhere else to go, she whispered, her voice cracking. Please, just let me stay for a night. I won't cause trouble. Anger surged hot in my chest. You broke into my garage, Emily. Do you even understand what you've done? I thought you were gone. I didn't break anything, she said quickly. The door was unlocked. My stomach twisted. The garage door. Unlocked. Mark had been the last one home yesterday. Claire, she pleaded again, softer this time. I didn't know where else to go. I pulled away from the door, my thoughts colliding like crashing cars. She had hurt me too many times before. I couldn't just let her waltz back in and pretend things were fine. And yet hearing her voice, that fragility, it made my resolve wobble. I whispered back, You can't stay here. Not like this. Her voice rose, panicked. Please. Just until morning. I promise. I went back to the living room and sank onto the couch, head in my hands. My phone buzzed again, this time, David. Everything okay? Want me to call the police? I typed back quickly. Not yet. It's someone I know. I'll handle it. Even typing those words felt like a lie. I wasn't handling anything. I was frozen, trapped between fear and guilt. Hours passed in a blur. I checked the camera feed over and over. Emily barely moved, curled up against the wall like a discarded doll. I didn't sleep at all. By morning, Mark still hadn't come home. When I heard the garage door creak open as sunlight spilled in, I rushed to the window. Emily slipped out, pulling her hood over her face, glancing around nervously before hurrying down the street. I let out a shaky breath. At least she was gone. But I knew it wasn't over. That evening, Mark finally came through the front door, dropping his bag by the couch with a sigh. Sorry, babe. Late night at the office. I studied him, searching for guilt in his face. He looked tired but calm, like nothing unusual had happened. You left the garage unlocked, I said, my voice sharp. He frowned. Did I? Sorry. I'll check next time. Something inside me snapped. Emily was in there last night. His eyes widened. What? Are you serious? I crossed my arms. Dead serious. David saw her slip inside. I checked the cameras. She spent the whole night in there. Mark ran a hand over his face. Jesus. Did you call the cops? No. She left this morning. His reaction was odd. Too controlled. He nodded slowly, then said, Maybe she was just looking for shelter. It's been cold. I narrowed my eyes. How did she even know the door would be unlocked? He shrugged. Lucky guess. But my gut twisted. His tone was casual, too casual, like he was hiding something. I couldn't let it go. You didn't tell her she could stay here, did you? He froze for just a fraction of a second before shaking his head. Of course not. Why would I do that? I stared at him, my heart pounding. That hesitation was small, but it was enough. Something was wrong. That night, after Mark fell asleep, I crept out of bed and opened the camera app again. I scrolled back through the feed, checking the previous day. My blood ran cold. Around 9:30 p.m., long before David knocked, the camera had caught something else. Mark himself, stepping into the garage. He carried a bag, looked around, and then unlocked the side door. 10 minutes later, Emily slipped inside. He had let her in. I sat there in the dark, the phone shaking in my hands, my chest so tight I could barely breathe. It wasn't just Emily sneaking back into my life. It was my husband opening the door for her.
I didn't sleep that night.
I couldn't. The image of Mark unlocking the garage door replayed in my head over and over, each loop burning hotter than the last. My husband had lied to me. Lied to my face when I asked him if he had let Emily in. I wanted to shake him awake, shove the phone in front of his face and scream, "Explain this." But I didn't. Instead, I lay there staring at the ceiling, my heart pounding like a drum. Because if he had opened that door for her once, what else had he been opening? By morning, I'd convinced myself I needed proof, more than a single clip on the camera. Something undeniable. Because I knew how this would go otherwise. He would twist it, gaslight me, make me question my own eyes. He'd done it before in smaller ways. Not about Emily, but about late nights, odd charges on the credit card, whispered phone calls in the backyard. So I said nothing. I made coffee. I kissed his cheek as he left for work, and I smiled as if my insides weren't rotting with suspicion. But the moment the door closed behind him, I opened the app again and scrolled further back in the recordings. And what I found made my skin crawl. It wasn't just one night. Emily had been in the garage multiple times over the past month. The timestamps told the story clearly. Mark arriving home late, Mark slipping into the garage with that same cautious glance over his shoulder, Emily entering soon after. Sometimes she stayed an hour. Sometimes overnight. My stomach lurched so violently I had to run to the sink. It wasn't just shelter. It wasn't an accident. This was deliberate. That evening, when Mark came home, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I met him at the kitchen table, my phone on the counter between us. "We need to talk." He raised an eyebrow, loosening his tie. "Sounds serious." I tapped the screen, the footage playing. Mark unlocking the garage door, Emily slipping inside. His face drained of color, but he forced a laugh. "Claire, come on. This isn't what it looks like." "Really?" My voice shook with fury. "Because it looks exactly like you've been sneaking my sister into her house." He rubbed the back of his neck, avoiding my eyes. "She reached out to me, okay? She said she needed help. She begged me not to tell you, because she knew you'd shut her out. I didn't want to upset you." My chest tightened. "So you lied to me instead?" His jaw clenched. "I was trying to protect you." "Protect me?" I laughed bitterly. "You let a drug addict into our garage in the middle of the night without telling me. You hid this for weeks. That's not protection, Mark. That's betrayal." His face hardened. "She's your sister, Claire. Don't you think she deserves a second chance?" "She had a second chance," I snapped. "And a third. And a fourth. Every time she burned me, every time she stole or lied or dragged us through hell, I was the one cleaning up the pieces. You don't get to make that choice for me." For the first time, his eyes flared with something darker than guilt, anger. "Maybe if you weren't so cold to her, she wouldn't have come to me instead." The words sliced deep, sharper than any blade. Cold. That's what he thought of me. Cold for setting boundaries. Cold for protecting myself. I stood abruptly, my chair scraping the floor. "If she shows up here again, I'm calling the police. I don't care if she's my sister. This ends now." He didn't argue. He just stared at me with that unreadable expression, the silence between us heavy and poisonous. Days passed with a tension so thick it felt like walking through fog. Mark and I barely spoke. When we did, it was clipped, polite, the bare minimum to function as a couple. But my instinct screamed at me that it wasn't over. And I was right. One night, while Mark was in the shower, I heard a faint creak from the garage. My heart stopped. I grabbed my phone, opened the feed, and there she was again. Emily. She was rummaging through boxes, her movements frantic. I stormed to the garage door and yanked it open. "What the hell are you doing?" Emily froze, her eyes wide and bloodshot. In her hand was a small jewelry box, my grandmother's necklace glinting in the dim light. "Claire, wait. It's not what? Not what it looks like?" My voice cracked. "You're stealing from me again." She dropped the box, her hands trembling. I just needed money. Just a little. I swear I was going to give it back. Get out, I hissed. Her lip quivered. Please.
Now.
Mark appeared in the doorway behind me, dripping wet, a towel around his waist. His eyes darted between us, and instead of fury at Emily, what I saw there was panic. Claire, stop, he said quickly. She didn't mean it. I spun on him, my blood boiling. Are you kidding me? She's stealing from us, and you're defending her. Emily sobbed quietly, backing toward the door. I'll go. And just like that, she vanished into the night again. I turned on Mark, shaking. How long has this been going on? How much have you hidden from me? He didn't answer. He just looked away, jaw tight, shoulders tense. And in that silence, I knew. It wasn't just pity that tied him to her. It was something deeper, something uglier. That night, after he fell asleep, I sat alone in the kitchen, the necklace clutched in my hand, tears streaming down my face. My husband and my sister, two people I should have been able to trust most, had made me feel like a stranger in my own home. The camera feed had shown me the truth. But the real question burned hotter with every passing minute. Was I strong enough to face it head-on? Or would I keep letting them write me out of my own life? The morning after finding Emily with my grandmother's necklace, I couldn't look at Mark. I went through the motions of brewing coffee, packing my bag, even smiling faintly when he kissed the top of my head before heading out the door. But inside, I was hollow. I waited until the sound of his car faded before pulling out my phone again. The camera feed didn't lie. I scrolled back through the recordings, my heart pounding as I watched the night's replay like a twisted film. There she was again, Emily.
Sneaking in.
Sometimes staying for hours, sometimes disappearing only when dawn crept in. And every time, Mark was there first, unlocking the door for her. One clip made my stomach churn. Mark entered with takeout bags. 10 minutes later, Emily appeared, sitting cross-legged on the floor beside him. They ate together, laughing at something I couldn't hear. My husband, feeding my sister in secret, while I sat alone inside the house thinking he was working late. I slammed my phone down on the counter, tears blurring my vision. This wasn't pity. This wasn't charity. This was betrayal. I tried to go to work, but I couldn't focus. Every face that came through the library doors blurred into one. Every sound of laughter felt like an echo of theirs. By lunch, I gave up and drove aimlessly around town, hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. Finally, I pulled into David's driveway. He opened the door quickly, concern etched on his weathered face.
Claire.
Everything all right? I shook my head, my throat tight. You were right to warn me that night. It wasn't just someone, it was Emily. And Mark knew. He let her in. David's eyes softened with sympathy. Oh, Claire. He gestured me inside, and I sat at his kitchen table, wrapping my arms around myself. She tried to steal from me again, I whispered. And he defended her, like I was the problem. David's jaw tightened. That's not right. You've been through enough with her already. I feel like I'm losing my mind, I admitted. Like I'm living in a house where everyone's in on a secret except me. David leaned forward. You're not crazy. You're seeing the truth. The question is, what are you going to do about it? That night, I decided to dig deeper. When Mark went to bed, I slipped into his office and opened his desk drawers. I hated myself for snooping, but trust had already been shattered. Inside, I found receipts. Money withdrawn in cash. Hundreds, sometimes thousands. Dates that matched the nights Emily showed up on camera. My stomach twisted. Then I found the envelope. Inside were letters. Handwritten, messy, unmistakably Emily's scrawl. Thank you for not giving up on me. You're the only one who understands. I can't believe Claire hates me this much. I wish things had been different between us. The last line made my blood run cold. Sometimes I think I should have been with you instead. My hands shook so badly, I nearly dropped the envelope. This wasn't just betrayal. This was something darker. Intimate. A line no sister should ever cross, and no husband should ever let blur. I shoved everything back and closed the drawer, my breath ragged. The next day, I confronted him. I waited until he came home, his tie loosened, his face weary. I sat at the kitchen table, the letters spread out before me. He froze in the doorway. Care to explain? I asked, my voice trembling with rage. His eyes flicked to the letters, then back to me. Claire, don't you dare lie to me again. My voice cracked. She wasn't just here for shelter. She wasn't just here for food. What the hell is going on between you and my sister? He ran a hand over his face, pacing. It's not what you think. Then what is it? I shouted. Because it looks like my husband has been sneaking my sister into our garage, giving her money, laughing with her, hiding letters from her, and defending her when she steals from me. Stop, he snapped, slamming his hands on the counter. You don't understand. Then make me understand. He looked at me with something between guilt and desperation. She needed someone. You pushed her away, Claire. You cut her out, and I couldn't just stand by while she self-destructed. She made her choices. I screamed. And you chose her over me. His face twisted. I didn't choose her over you. I pointed to the letters. Then what the hell is this? He hesitated. Just for a second. But it was enough. I felt the floor vanish beneath me. Emily showed up again 2 nights later. I was ready this time. The garage camera pinged on my phone, and I watched her slip inside like a shadow. Instead of confronting her immediately, I went outside and circled around, heart hammering. Through the small garage window, I saw them. Mark and Emily sitting close together, whispering. His hand brushed hers. She leaned her head against his shoulder. The sight hollowed me out completely. My sister. My husband. Sharing the kind of intimacy that was supposed to be mine. I stumbled back, ball rising in my throat. I didn't storm in. I didn't scream. I just went inside, locked the door, and slid down the hallway wall, shaking uncontrollably. Because the truth was undeniable now. It wasn't pity. It wasn't charity. It was betrayal. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the couch, staring at the dark screen of the TV, the silence of the house pressing down on me. At dawn, Mark came in, his face pale, his eyes avoiding mine.
He knew I'd seen.
But neither of us spoke. The distance between us was no longer measured in silence. It was measured in shattered trust. By the time the sun rose that morning, something inside me had broken beyond repair. I moved through the house like a stranger, my footsteps echoing in rooms that no longer felt like mine. Mark made coffee, his hands shaking slightly, but neither of us spoke. The silence was a war zone. One wrong word, and the entire house would collapse. When he left for work, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the wood grain until my vision blurred. The rage inside me pulsed like a drumbeat, but beneath it was something heavier, shame. Shame that I had ignored the signs. Shame that I had let them play me for a fool. I pulled out my phone and rewatched the clip of them together in the garage. His hand brushing hers, her head resting against his shoulder. It felt like knives dragging across my chest. I knew I couldn't keep this secret locked in my own head. If I did, it would eat me alive. So I walked across the street and knocked on David's door. He opened it quickly, concern etched on his face. Claire? I need to show you something, I whispered. At his kitchen table, I pulled up the footage. His eyes narrowed as he watched, jaw tightening. My God, he muttered. That's your sister? Yes. My voice cracked. And my husband. He exhaled slowly, rubbing a hand over his mouth. Claire, you can't let this continue. This isn't just betrayal. It's dangerous. If she's using again, she could drag him down with her. Or worse, drag you into something criminal. The thought made my stomach churn. I hadn't even considered the legal fallout.
Drugs. Theft. Lies.
My sister had already wrecked her own life, and now she was entwined with my husband. What would they wreck next? David's voice softened. You need to protect yourself. That evening, when Mark came home, I was waiting. I had placed the necklace, the one Emily had tried to steal, on the table. The letters beside it. And my phone screen paused on the footage of them in the garage. His face drained of color the moment he saw the display. Sit, I said coldly. He hesitated, then obeyed, sinking into the chair across from me. I want the truth, I demanded. All of it. No more lies. For a long moment he said nothing. His hands fidgeted, his gaze fixed on the table. Finally, he whispered, "It's not what you think." I slammed my palm on the table, the sound echoing. "Don't you dare feed me that line again." His eyes flicked up, guilt swimming in them. She came to me months ago. Said she was clean, said she just needed help getting back on her feet. You wouldn't even answer her calls, Claire. I thought I was doing the right thing. My throat burned.
So you lied to me.
Hid her in our garage. Gave her money. Let her steal from me. And you think that's the right thing?
His voice cracked.
I didn't want to hurt you. You didn't want to get caught, I snapped. He flinched, silence stretching between us like a blade. Then, in a voice so low I almost missed it, he said, "I never meant for it to go this far." My stomach dropped. Go this far? His silence was answer enough. The days that followed were a blur of paranoia. I checked the cameras constantly, waiting for Emily to appear again. Every time Mark left the house, I wondered if he was going to work, or to her. Every text he sent felt like a lie waiting to be uncovered. And then came the night everything boiled over. I was in the living room, pretending to read, when I heard the faint creak of the garage door. My heart pounded. I grabbed my phone, opened the feed, and there they were again. Emily and Mark. Together. But this time it was worse. They weren't just sitting close. They were kissing. My vision blurred with rage. I dropped the phone onto the couch, my hands trembling violently. For a moment I thought I might faint. Then something inside me snapped. I stormed into the garage, the door slamming against the wall. They leapt apart, eyes wide. Emily's face was pale, her lips red. Mark's shirt was half unbuttoned. "Are you insane?" I screamed. "In my house? In my garage?" "Claire," Mark started, but I cut him off. "Don't you dare say my name," I shouted, tears burning down my cheeks. How long? How long has this been going on?" Emily's lip trembled. "It's not what?" "Don't you dare," I shrieked. "Don't you dare stand there and lie to me again." The silence was suffocating. Finally, Mark whispered, "Months." The word shattered me. I staggered back, clutching my chest like I'd been stabbed. My sister stared at me with wide, desperate eyes. "Claire, please, I didn't mean to." "You didn't mean to what?" I spat. "Destroy me? Steal my husband? Betray me all over again?" Her tears spilled. I thought he loved me." The room tilted. The air left my lungs. My husband, my sister, both confessing, right there in my garage, as if my marriage, my family, my trust meant nothing. I grabbed the necklace off the workbench, the same one she'd tried to steal, and hurled it at her feet.
"Take it."
"Take everything. Clearly, nothing here belongs to me anymore." And then I walked out, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. I spent the night at David's. He didn't ask questions, just handed me a blanket and let me collapse on his couch. I cried until I was empty, until there was nothing left but a hollow shell. By morning, I knew I couldn't stay silent anymore. I called my parents, told them everything. The letters, the footage, the betrayal. My mother sobbed, my father swore, but neither of them defended Emily this time. And then I called a lawyer. Because if they thought they could destroy me quietly, they were wrong. The morning after I caught them in the garage, I woke up on David's couch with my face stiff from dried tears and my body aching from exhaustion. For a moment, I thought maybe it had all been a nightmare. But then I glanced at my phone on the coffee table, screen still open to the paused footage of Mark and Emily kissing, and the reality punched me all over again. This wasn't just betrayal. This was annihilation. I drove back to the house after sunrise, dreading what I'd find. The garage door was closed, the house silent. Inside, Mark was gone, no note, no trace. Emily too. But their shadows still clung to every corner of the house. The kitchen smelled faintly of his cologne. The hallway light buzzed softly, the one he always forgot to turn off. I felt like I was walking through a crime scene. I packed a small bag, clothes, toiletries, my grandmother's photo, and left again. I couldn't stay there. Not while it reeked of them. That afternoon, I met with a divorce lawyer. Her office was neat, lined with shelves of law books that smelled like paper and polish. She listened quietly as I explained, my voice trembling at first, but gaining strength as I laid out the evidence. The camera footage, the letters, the stolen jewelry, the cash withdrawals. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair, her expression calm but resolute. Claire, you have more than enough to proceed. The adultery alone is grounds for divorce. Add the financial deception, the involvement of your sister. It's damning. If we push this through, you'll be protected. He won't be able to take the house, the savings. You'll come out stronger. Her words were steadying. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a sliver of control. Do it, I said firmly. File the papers. That evening, I stayed at David's again. He poured me tea, his voice gentle. You did the right thing. I don't feel strong, I admitted. I feel hollow. Like I lost everything in one night. He studied me carefully. You didn't lose everything. You lost people who chose to betray you. That's not the same. And you still have yourself. That's something they can't take. His words settled deep inside me, planting a seed of resilience. But Mark didn't let me go quietly. 2 days later, he showed up at David's house. I saw him through the window before he knocked, his face pale, his eyes wild. David stepped outside first, standing between us. I just want to talk to her, Mark pleaded. David's voice was firm. Not here. Not like this. I stepped into the doorway, my heart pounding. What do you want? His eyes met mine, desperate. Claire, please. Don't do this. Don't throw everything away. It was a mistake. A mistake. My voice cracked. You were sneaking my sister into our garage for months. You kissed her in my house. That's not a mistake, Mark. That's a choice. He flinched, his lips trembling. I didn't mean for it to go that far. I was trying to help her, I swear. And then, he broke off, tears welling. I don't even know how it happened. I shook my head, fury and sorrow burning together. You knew exactly how it happened. You unlocked the door. Every time. You unlocked it for her and you locked me out. His face crumpled, but I didn't waver. The papers are being filed. We're done. His eyes darkened. You'll regret this. No, I whispered. I regret trusting you. David closed the door firmly in his face, and the sound of the latch clicking was like a final note in a song that had already ended. But the storm wasn't over. Emily tried next. She called late that night, her voice cracking through the speaker. Claire, please. Don't shut me out forever. I didn't mean to hurt you. I laughed bitterly. You didn't mean to? You've been hurting me my whole life, Emily. And now you've taken the one thing I thought I could count on. I can't forgive that. Her sobs came fast, but I didn't let them sway me. You need to get help, I said coldly. But you won't get it from me anymore. And then I hung up. The weeks that followed were brutal. My parents took my side, but the rift between them and Emily grew cavernous. Mark sent flowers I didn't open, texts I didn't read, voicemails I deleted after the first line. I filed restraining orders, transferred money into my name, changed the locks on the house I eventually moved back into. It was lonely, excruciatingly lonely, but it was also cleansing. Each cut I made, one less tie, one less weakness, was a step toward reclaiming myself. One night, about a month later, I sat in the garage, the same place where my world had collapsed. The air was cool, faintly smelling of oil and dust. I stared at the empty space against the wall where they used to sit together, whispering and laughing. And I realized something. That garage wasn't a crime scene anymore. It was evidence. Evidence that I had survived. Mark eventually stopped trying. Emily disappeared again, vanishing into whatever chaos she always chased. And me? I rebuilt. Slowly, painfully, but honestly. There were nights when the loneliness felt unbearable, when I longed for the life I thought I had, even if it had been built on lies. But then I remembered the camera footage, the stolen necklace, the letters. And I knew I couldn't go back.
I didn't want to.
Because as much as betrayal broke me, it also forced me to become someone stronger. The last thing David said to me before I finally moved back into my house has stayed with me ever since. He handed me the keys, his gaze steady. Don't think of yourself as someone abandoned. Think of yourself as someone freed. And for the first time, I believed him. Winter came fast that year, sharp winds rattling the windows, frost lacing the edges of the garage where everything had unraveled. I thought by then I'd feel more whole, more healed, but healing isn't tidy. It doesn't come in straight lines. Some mornings I woke up with my chest lighter, as if I'd finally shed the weight of betrayal. Other mornings, the grief crashed over me, suffocating and relentless, reminding me that trust, once shattered, never fits back together the same way. But as the days stretched on, something unexpected took root.
Peace.
Not the loud, triumphant kind. Not revenge. Not justice screamed from rooftops. Quiet peace. The kind that slips in slowly, almost unnoticed, until one day you realize your body isn't trembling anymore when you check the cameras, or your hands don't shake when you hear footsteps in the driveway. It started with small things. Painting the kitchen a new color. Donating the couch Mark and I had picked out together, replacing it with something I chose only for myself. Replanting the garden Emily once trampled through, coaxing green life back into the soil. Every act was a reclamation. A reminder. This was my house. My life. The divorce finalized in January. My lawyer called to confirm the papers had been filed, signed, sealed. It was official. Mark had tried in the beginning to fight, to argue over property, over finances. But the evidence was too strong. The camera footage, the letters, the timeline, it was undeniable. When my lawyer slid the documents across the table, his eyes never met mine. I signed with a hand that trembled only slightly, and when it was done, I felt the faintest surge of power ripple through me. Emily didn't show her face in court. She was out there somewhere, no doubt blaming me for her ruin, as if I'd driven her into Mark's arms myself. But I no longer cared where she was. For the first time in my life, I wasn't carrying her mistakes like boulders on my back. She could sink or swim on her own. The betrayal lingered, though.
I won't lie about that.
Nights were the hardest. I'd lie awake, replaying every laugh, every I love you, every dinner we shared in the kitchen while Emily was only a few feet away in the garage, waiting for him. I'd picture them whispering, touching hands, their heads close. And I'd wonder, was he imagining her even when he looked at me? That kind of thought doesn't vanish overnight. It scars you. It changes how you love, how you trust. But it also hardens you. One night, I stood in the garage again, the cold seeping through the concrete into my bare feet. I stared at the corner where they'd sat, where my life had been dismantled. And I realized I wasn't shaking anymore. I wasn't crying. I wasn't screaming. I was calm. Because they hadn't destroyed me. They'd freed me. Spring brought new beginnings. I applied for a promotion at the library, a position I'd hesitated to go after before, thinking it would be too much responsibility, too much weight. But now I welcomed the challenge. I needed something that was mine, untouched by betrayal. And when I got the call that I'd been chosen, I cried, not from grief, but from pride. I celebrated alone, sipping champagne in the living room, the light from the new curtains casting the walls in gold. It wasn't the life I'd envisioned, but it was mine, fully mine. People sometimes ask if I ever confronted them again, if I screamed, exposed them publicly, made them pay. The truth is I didn't. I didn't need to. Their lives are punishment enough. Mark lost his marriage, his reputation, the stability I brought him. Emily lost her family's last shred of patience, their final line of defense. They'll carry their shame in ways no courtroom could impose. And me? I got my life back. That's the real revenge. The last time I saw Emily was by accident. Months later, I spotted her outside a gas station. She was thinner, her hair dull, her face gaunt. She glanced at me, recognition flickering in her eyes. For a heartbeat, I thought she might approach. Might beg, cry, try one last time. But she didn't. She turned away. And for the first time in years, I felt no urge to run after her, no ache to fix her, no guilt gnawing my insides. Only relief. I still have the cameras. Some nights, I sit on the couch, the feeds glowing on my phone. The garage is always empty now, quiet, just four walls and concrete. But I don't see it as the place of my ruin anymore. I see it as proof. Proof that betrayal may steal your breath, your trust, even your sense of self for a time. But it can't steal everything, unless you let it. I didn't let it. And that's why I'm still standing. So if you ask me now what I'd do if someone warned, there's someone in your garage, I'd tell you this. I'd look. I'd face it. I'd breathe. Because I've already survived the worst thing I could ever find there. And I'm still here.